Our Secretary of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., recently made a statement that the ketogenic diet cures schizophrenia. This is a very strong statement, and whether or not this is true, I think this is great for the metabolic mental health movement, metabolic psychiatry, just to have someone prominent in the government talking about this. But in this video, I really want to just break down for you guys my thoughts about this. How much of this do I think is true? Do I think ketogenic diets cure schizophrenia? What is my own experience with bipolar disorder? Am I cured? So I just thought after this massive statement and, the movement's going to be getting all this publicity, I thought it was worth making a video response. So I hope this might clarify some things for you guys if you were a little bit unsure about, man, Robert F. Kennedy just made this huge claim, and other parts of the media, like the New York Times, other parts of the media have been pushing back on this, saying this is unfounded. But I don't think that's the right response. I think there are strong, significant kernels of truth in this claim that the ketogenic diet can cure schizophrenia. So anyways, let's get into this. I wrote down some notes, just all of my thoughts of all the things I want to say. But the first thing I want to answer is what is true about this and what isn't true. So one thing I want to note, you guys, is that Dr. Chris Palmer, who's the doctor that Robert F. Kennedy cited, Dr. Palmer has never claimed that the ketogenic diet can cure schizophrenia. He's never claimed that. He's never used the language cured. I try not to use the language cured in my own speech about my recovery from bipolar disorder using ketogenic diets. I sometimes throw it in just to be hyperbolic, just to exaggerate, just for fun. But do I consider myself cured? I'm not sure. But the first point I want to make is that Dr. Palmer has never used the word cured, or he doesn't advocate using the word cured. And he's the one who's been doing this research, treating patients. And I think RFK was citing Dr. Palmer's work when he said there is a doctor in Massachusetts who can cure schizophrenia using a ketogenic diet. That's strong language from RFK. And I don't think that Dr. Palmer has made that claim himself. So this was a bit of an exaggeration from RFK. But there are kernels of truth in this. So I'll just share my own experience. I was having manic episodes, psychotic episodes, in and out of psychosis for 2 years, and then really struggling with my mental health for another 2 years. And so in 2020, right before I went on a ketogenic diet, I was really struggling with these manias. These powerful manic episodes would come on. I would start to sleep less and less, and then I would have to take extra antipsychotic medication. And that was the incessant pattern for years. When I went on a ketogenic diet in 2021, my manic episodes literally stopped happening. And I've had some small blips since then, maybe like some of them last a week at most or a couple days. And these are periods when I haven't been as strict about tracking my ketones. And so maybe they drop and then I come into ketosis again hardcore. And then I have a blip of a couple days. But what I will say is this last year of doing carnivore, of being really strict about my ketogenic diet, watching my sleep, of tracking my ketones regularly, I have had 0 symptoms of bipolar disorder. I've had 0, no depression, no hypomania. And that's not an exaggeration for you guys. So if I'm able to go on like this with a history of severe mental illness, and now I'm getting off my medication, I'm tapering off my anticonvulsant right now. I'm on a very, very low dose of antipsychotic. So compared to the 5 meds I was on at high doses 6-7 years ago, this is very, very low. The medications I'm not on now, and I'm not having manic episodes because I'm strict carnivore, in ketosis, watching my sleep, physical exercise, all the things we talk about on this channel. What does that mean? If I'm able to go through life on a couple meds, low doses, and I'm hopefully going to get off them soon for the last year and potentially for years to come, of not showing signs of this illness, not showing signs of hypomania or depression. And it's February right now, so this is the manic season where theoretically my mood would start to become elevated 5-6 years ago before keto, and I would have to take extra medication. And I haven't taken extra medication this year. I'm actually tapering off my antipsychotic or my anticonvulsant very slowly. What does that say about being cured if I have not had any symptoms and I'm just living a wonderful life, fulfilling life with friends, great relationships, meaning, purpose, faith? Does that mean I'm cured? I don't know. And it's a hard question to answer, but cured is a very, very strong word. What I will say though is I still do my treatment. My treatment is a ketogenic diet, is a carnivore diet where my ketones are between 1 and 4 millimoles per liter all the time. They fluctuate, usually around 2. I do that regularly. So I still need to do my treatment, which is my carnivore diet, and watch my sleep and all these things. So in that sense, maybe I'm not cured because I don't know what would happen if I went off my carnivore diet. I don't know if my symptoms would come back. I've never gone off the ketogenic diet in the last 5 years that I've been on it. That's the first point I want to make, is that I don't know whether I'm cured, but I still need to keep doing this carnivore thing to make sure my mood stays stable. Another point I want to make is that we have early studies. There have been studies at Ohio State University, Jeff Volek, and Stanford University, Shibani Sethi, and a couple others that have demonstrated significant improvement from patients who have adhered to a ketogenic diet over a period of few weeks and tracked their symptoms of schizophrenia, depression, bipolar disorder. In the case of the Ohio State University study, these were depressed college students who went on a ketogenic diet and showed tremendous improvement. In the case of Dr. Sethi's study at Stanford, these were depressed or schizophrenic patients who also showed tremendous improvement, with a more significant improvement for those patients who adhered to the diet better. In other words, the more time they spent in keto, the better they got. These are just small studies, 10 to 20, 30 patients at most. We're working on a randomized controlled trial. I think they're doing it in Australia right now. So these are just early preliminary studies, but they absolutely demonstrate that the ketogenic diet can be efficacious in treating serious mental illness. I think in the case of the Ohio State University, there was a 70% statistically significant reduction in symptoms, whereas most psychiatric medications only provide about a 50% statistically significant reduction in symptoms. So the ketogenic diet, for the people who actually adhered to it consistently over those few weeks of the study, they showed better improvement than a control group or a group on medication would have under the same treatment. It's hard to say whether these treatments cure people, but we absolutely have early preliminary studies that demonstrate ketogenic diet can absolutely be efficacious in treating serious mental illness. Not only that, but these patients improved. In Dr. Sethi's study at Stanford, the patients showed metabolic improvements overall. They lost weight. They had better insulin sensitivity at the end of the study, just overall better metabolic health. And one of the things that really harms people who have these mental illnesses long-term is that the medications cause metabolic damage. People become obese because these medications make people gain weight. And I'm sure many of y'all have experienced that on antipsychotic, olanzapine, these other medications, you gain weight. That's because these medications have a negative metabolic effect. I once heard them described by a wise person as poisons with positive side effects. And that's really what these medications are, but they do have positive side effects. So the only other thing I would add, we do have evidence now, small studies, that show efficacy for ketogenic diets for mental illness. Not only that, but my own anecdotal experience, having talked to dozens of people who say, Matthew, I was depressed for 20 years. I went on a ketogenic diet. After 3 weeks, I felt normal for the first time in 2 decades. I've heard that over and over. So with all these anecdotal experiences, we know this is a powerful metabolic intervention. But to say that someone's cured, again, I think that's strong language, because they still need to do their treatment, which is the ketogenic diet. Now, some people potentially could come off the diet, do the diet for a year, 2, 3 years, come off the diet and have no remission in symptoms. So that's something we haven't studied as extensively, and I'm not as familiar with that. But I know that in pediatric epilepsy, children were treated for epilepsy with a ketogenic diet for a long time. These children would go on the ketogenic diet for a couple years, 3 years, go off the diet, and their seizures actually would not return. So I suspect that's also a possibility with serious mental illness, is for some people come in with schizophrenia, depression, bipolar, schizoaffective, whatever. They could do keto for 3 years, 4 years, potentially ease off the diet and have no remission in symptoms. Again, that's not something I'm doing. I'm still on keto after 5 years, carnivore, strict carnivore, just because I love it. I love the metabolic health benefits. I love to run on ketones. My brain, my cognition is clear. Everything is good. But that's the other point I wanted to make. With that, I will close. I hope this helped clarify some things. Again, I want to say that I support RFK. I love what RFK is doing. The MAHA movement. I support the MAHA movement, right? Because we have a health crisis in this country. We have a metabolic health crisis. And there's so much confusion around what we're all supposed to be doing. People are saying do vegan. People are saying you need to exercise more. But the truth is that all of this chronic disease, all of the type 2 diabetes, the Alzheimer's, the heart disease, metabolic syndrome, all this stuff, it all boils down to the same cause, which is metabolic dysfunction, specifically insulin sensitivity. Insulin is not delivering glucose into your cells effectively, and that causes all kinds of metabolic problems. And a low carb diet can be an incredible way to treat this. So I support the MAHA movement. I hope they can get this right, which is that we need government recommendation for a low carb diet for people with chronic metabolic illnesses, the ones I just described. But again, guys, I support RFK. I think these statements were a bit strong and a bit exaggerated. And like I said, Dr. Palmer does not use the word cured himself, but I absolutely think there are kernels of truth in them in the efficacy of a ketogenic diet to treat serious mental illness. So I hope this was helpful. Thank you for watching. I will see you all in the next video.